Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin and for today's video, we're going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I've done this twice before, I believe, so I'll have those videos linked in the description below if you're at all interested in checking them out. I believe this has like 15 questions, but there are a couple that aren't applicable, so I'm just not going to be answering those, but I'm going to be answering most of them. I think I'm answering 13 or 14, so I'm very excited. Like I said, I do this video every year, and it's always a fun one, so let's just get started because I don't want it to be super long. But if you've never seen this before, essentially it's just kind of like a mid-year check-in with your reading, and as I did, at least I know in last year's video, but I'm not sure in the year prior, just kind of like a general update on how I'm doing outside of these questions. I have currently read 59 books this year out of my goal of 144, and I'm like 10 books behind, which is super stressful, but I've enjoyed a lot of what I've read. My best reading month so far this year I think was like 21 books or something like that, so hopefully I can catch up. That's the goal, but let's just get started and dive into the questions. So the first question is your favorite book that you've read so far this year. I have a couple of answers for this. They're really different answers, so that's why I chose two. The first one is like my favorite book that I've read all year, but it's kind of applicable for the second question as well, but I'm just going to answer it for this one, and that is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I loved this book, especially if you guys saw my vlog for this, then you would know. This is the fourth book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas, which is another series that I love. This is my new favorite book in the series. For a long time, it was Akamath. This one follows Nesta, and that is one of Feyre's older sisters. And Nesta in the other books has been pretty unlikable, but in this one we kind of get more of her struggles and what she's going through and her mental processes, and it just like meant a lot to me. So I loved this one so much. 5 out of 5 stars. I cried a bunch. I really related to a lot of elements of it because at its core it really is a mental health story with some romance and fantasy thrown in there. But yeah, A Court of Silver Flames, hands down. The other answer that I have is one that put me in a book hangover for a little bit and honestly might be why I'm behind on my reading, and that is The One by John Mars. I hate this edition. I want a regular standard paperback, but for now we just have the mass market. Loved this book. Loved it so much. It was so good. This is a thriller set in a world where people, like, you send in your DNA and you can find your DNA soulmate, your match, and it's your one, and we're following a bunch of different couples as they found their soulmates and watching them like work through that, see if there's genuinely a connection there, because sometimes couples like don't have that connection. And as the book goes on and progresses, there are more and more thrillery elements implemented, and it's a really quick read. I'm pretty sure the chapters are relatively short. I listened to the audiobook personally, but yeah, as you keep going, everything just gets way more engaging, and by the end, I was literally like, what just happened? This one was another 5-star read. I don't know why I put it off for so long. I definitely want to read more of John Mars' work. Put me in a book hangover for sure. The second question, which I kind of mentioned, A Court of Silver Flames, could be applicable for that as well, is the best sequel that you have read so far this year. And while I don't own an actual copy of that, I own the next book in the series. And the first one that came to mind was The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. I'm holding up the score because this is what I have from the series. But it's the book just before this one. Elle Kennedy writes sports romances, from what I'm pretty sure. This is the third book in the off-campus series, but the one I'm talking about, I'll put a picture up so it's not confusing, is the second book in the off-campus series. The first one I liked, but I didn't love, and the second one I loved. I ate it up in like 2 days. It's a hockey college sports romance, and it was the first sports romance I had ever read. I don't know why, but I just never thought that I would really like them. But I loved it, and I cannot wait to read the next 2 books in. But the first book is called The Deal, and we are following Hannah and Garrett, I believe, and Hannah agrees to tutor Garrett so that he can like stay on the hockey team because he didn't do very well on this one final, but Hannah did. And in the second book, we're following one of his roommates and the girl that like he ends up with, which I'm pretty sure her name is Grace. Loved this. It was so good. Very excited. I just can't wait. And I really like Elle Kennedy and her writing, so I'm excited to read more by her this year. Question number 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet, and there are a bunch, honestly. I just keep buying new releases, so there are so many potential answers that I could have to this question, but the one that came to mind like immediately and that I keep staring at is Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. This is her newest fantasy, and I've heard it's like kind of new adult. And I'm pretty sure there's like a pirate element to it. Yeah, I really don't know much about this, but I've heard such rave reviews that I am just genuinely so excited. So this one I would have to say, plus it's like huge and beautiful, and I love this cover. Question number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and that would definitely have to be Kingdom of the Cursed by Carrie Maniscalco. I read Kingdom of the Wicked earlier this year and absolutely fell in love with it. I read it with one of my good friends, Rylan. It was the best buddy read of my entire life, first of all, which definitely helped. And we'll talk about it more, like why I loved it later, but this is definitely... I cannot wait for this one. I need to have it as soon as possible. Question number 4 is kind of a downer, and that is the biggest disappointment that you've had so far this year. And this one, it wasn't a bad book, it just definitely was the most disappointing one that I've read so far this year, and that is Rumina by Junji Ito. I had such high expectations, especially because it is a Junji Ito book, and I read Tomi by him and really loved it. And this one did definitely creep me out. I read it in my horror manga vlog, but it just, I don't know. It wasn't all there for me. I just kind of, I gave it 3 stars and I was expecting to love it. So this one is probably my biggest disappointment because I fully anticipated that it would be a 5-star read. In a similar vein to the last question, but on the reverse side of it, and that is, what is your biggest surprise? And so the answers that I have for this question would have to be The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. If you watched the vlog that I read this in, you will have heard me say time and time again that I genuinely thought that I would never like this book, and so I listened to the audiobook and I was blown away. It was 5 stars. I'm pretty sure I teared up. It was just very impactful for me and I loved it. So this definitely took me by surprise and I gave it 5 stars. And then I have a couple of manga answers because I have been getting more and more into manga this year, which has been so fun for me. The first one is Death Note Volume 1 of the Black Edition, which has volumes 1 and 2 in it. I don't know why, but I also put this one off for a really long time and kind of anticipated that I would like it, but maybe not love it. And I was, again, mind blown by this one. This is like a horror thriller kind of manga as well as like fantasy elements. And I gave it 5 stars. I read it in like 1 or 2 sittings. It was so good. I also read this for my horror manga vlog and just... I loved it. I loved it so much. The other manga volume that took me completely by surprise and I was not expecting to love nearly as much as I did was Full Metal Alchemist Volume 1. This is the Full Metal edition, which is just absolutely beautiful. I loved this. I picked it up on a whim because I've heard such amazing things about it and was just so shocked by how much I loved it. This has a lot of moving parts, so I honestly can't explain it very well, but basically we're following 2 brothers that are like very well trained alchemists and just kind of what they're going through. They're trying to get their bodies back. One of them has like a metal arm and I think a metal leg as well, and the other one is just like a suit of armor and all that he has is his soul, and that's like what's keeping him alive. But I freaking loved this. It was so good and I definitely need to continue on with it because there are just so many moving parts and I cannot wait to read the rest of them. My counting is going to be off in this video because I skipped a question. Oh well. Question number 7 is your new favorite author. And it's not that this author is like a new author to me by any means. I've read a decent amount of their books at this point, but it's just that I've decided I think that they might be my all-time favorite author, and that was solidified when their 6th book in the series came out this year, and I read it immediately and also loved it, and that was Shauna Maguire with Across the Greengrass Fields. This is, like I said, the 6th book in the Wayward Children series, which is a series that I deeply love. It just explores a lot of different characters and a lot of different facets of human life in a way where it feels very magical and whimsical and story-like, which obviously they are stories, but with some books it can get more real and hit on the nose than others. And I love this because it feels so, like, not far-fetched, but whimsical and out of reach, but everything is very, very real. So in this one, we're following our main character, Reagan, who's obsessed with horses and horse-like creatures, and she comes across a door. She follows into it, and she's escaping her life because she was just outed, essentially. I think she is an intersex main character, if I remember correctly. And she was just outed as such at her whole school. I think she told one person and then they started bullying her for it, which was not the reaction she was anticipating. Obviously, because why would you bully someone? Whatever. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. But this just talks about Reagan and what she's going through and how this world helps her cope, just like so many of the other books do for all of the other characters. And I don't know, I really liked it, and I'm excited to see where Shauna Maguire goes with the other series. And again, this book just has so many amazing quotes. This year just solidified that Shauna Maguire might be my all-time favorite author, because I've read the most books by her that have all gotten 5 stars. So, question number 8 is, who is your newest fictional crush? And I would hands down have to say Wrath from Kingdom of the Wicked. I told you we would get back to this one. I love Wrath. If you haven't read Kingdom of the Wicked, it's basically like a fantasy murder mystery where all of these witches are dying in Italy, and we're following our main character, Amelia, after her twin sister Vittoria dies. She's trying to figure out who did it. Along the way, trying to figure out who did it, she comes across a prince of hell named Wrath. There are 7 princes of hell, and she happens to run into Wrath. They basically need something from each other, and so there's a mutual agreement to help solve these murders and to prevent her from getting murdered as well, and trying to save her sister, even though she's already dead. And by the end of this book, oh my goodness, I can't wait for the sequel. I know I said it already in this video, but the sequel is going to be so good. Question number 9 is, who is your newest favorite fictional character? For me, I would probably have to say Avery from the Inheritance games. I fully love all of the Hawthorne boys as well, and I think that this book, like, I picked this book for this question because this is my favorite cast of characters together. It's not that I just love Avery, not that I don't, because I do really love her, but I love all of the Hawthorne boys, and I love their dynamic together more than anything. And so I cannot wait for the sequel. I think that Jennifer Lynn Barnes is a really, really great writer, and I need to read more. Definitely Avery and the Hawthorne boys are my new favorites. Then I have a repeat answer for this video, which I tried not to do. I tried to do it as little as possible, but sometimes that happens. And that is a book that made you cry. So I again have 2 answers. My answer would not be complete if I didn't mention A Court of Silver Flames. I already mentioned that I cried in this a bunch of times. It's in my vlog if you want to see it. It really hit the spot for me. But another one that made me really, really emotional was Heartstopper Volume 4. I related to this and had my eyes opened by this in ways that I wasn't expecting so many times. I think that this is a book that will be very close to my heart for a really long time. Like, I could tear up about it talking about it right now. This one, content warning for eating disorders and mental illnesses and going to a psychiatric ward. It just not only explores mental health and like what it's like to be in a relationship when you're struggling, but also what it's like from the other person's perspective while the person that they love is struggling with mental health, and how confusing that can be for both parties, because on the one hand, the person going through all of that doesn't understand why the other, like their partner, doesn't fully get what they're going through, and their partner is doing as much research as they possibly can and still not getting it, but doing everything that they can to help, even if sometimes what they're doing like might do more harm than good, but it's not helpful and they're unaware of that, but it's not from a place of malice. It just was very eye-opening, and I learned a lot about what it's like to be on the other side of it when you don't struggle. I love this. I think it will be a book that I reread the most from this series, just because it is a good reminder for me. Question number 11, what is your favorite book to movie adaptation that you have seen this year, /read? And while I didn't reread the book for this, I had read it previously, like my senior year of high school or something. That kind of makes me feel old. And I do really want to reread this series. So if you guys want to do a read along with me, definitely let me know so that we can do that together, because I would love to. But the movie recently came out, and that was Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. I loved this movie so much. For real, it's my favorite of the adaptations, I'm pretty sure. And in case you're like curious about my ranking, this one's my favorite. The first one is my second favorite, and the third one is my least favorite. I didn't really like that adaptation very much, but I loved this one, and I love the first movie so much. They're just so good. This one just meant a lot to me. And seeing it, I think I cried a little bit. It was so good. Number 12 is, I think, the most beautiful book that you've purchased this year, because one of these books did not come out this year, I don't think, but I have two answers for this as well, because apparently it's impossible for me to choose just one. So the first one is one that came out this year, and that is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. Seriously, just look at this cover. Are you literally kidding me? I am obsessed with it. I haven't read this one yet, but I've heard mixed things about it, to be honest. Rylan, I'm pretty sure, who's one of my good friends, DNF'd it, and Naya from Naya Reads and Smiles absolutely loved it. I feel like I'm going to love it, but it makes me nervous that Rylan DNF'd it. So I don't know. But either way, this cover is absolutely beautiful. I'm obsessed. And the other cover that I am absolutely in love with is A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This is just all the colors that I love. It's very different from Witches Steeped in Gold. Obviously, these are stark contrasts from each other, but this it feels like springtime on a cover, and I love it. I love it. I could stare at it all day, honestly. 13 is more of a video question, and that is, what is your favorite video that you have made / uploaded this year? And I have two answers for this that I'm pretty proud of, but I don't think either of them did like that well, but either way, I'm still genuinely really proud of them. The first one is the day in the life that I did. I'm just really overall happy with how that turned out. I had a lot of fun filming it, and I would like to do it again. And the other one is my horror manga vlog, which, like I said, also didn't do amazing, but I had so much fun doing that. I had so much fun doing a secret TBR. That was the first time I was ever really successful with it. So yeah, I would have to say those for sure are my favorite videos that I've made, and I'll have those linked in the description below in case you guys are interested in checking them out. It would mean a lot to me. Like I said, they're my favorite videos that I've made. I worked really hard on them. I've honestly been working really hard on all of my vlogs that I've put out this year, and I'm genuinely really happy with each of those, all of the vlogs that I've put out this year. So if you watch any of my vlogs from this year, those count as well. And question 14, the last one that I will be answering in this video, is what books do you still need to read for the second half of the year? One of them I've already started, and that is From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I am currently 82 pages into this, have been for a while now, but I am really liking it. This is my first Mariana Zapata book that I'm reading, and I am just so infatuated with it, and I can't wait to continue on. This is another sports romance. It's like 500 pages, and it's enemies to lovers. It's figure skating, and I have a feeling it's just going to be so good. I've only ever heard good things about this, so I'm very excited. And then we have a newer release, which is Ace of Spades by Farida Ibike Umede, I think is how you pronounce that. I'm really sorry if that's wrong, but this is a thriller set in a private school, I'm pretty sure, between the smartest kids, and it just sounds really good. Again, Rylan influences all of my choices, to be honest, said that she loved this one. And it's one of her favorite books that she's read so far this year, so I am very excited about this. Plus, this cover is beautiful. And lastly, we have an adult fantasy, The Savior's Champion by Jenna Moreci. I feel like I put this on so many like TBRs and never end up actually reading it. This year is going to be the year. I'm gonna bring it with me to school. If I have, like, I'm going to read this book. I have to read it. The sequel, I think, comes out sometime soon, or it's already out, but I've heard that this is like an adult version of the Hunger Games, so sounds really good. That is everything for the mid-year book freakout tag. I am definitely still freaking out, especially with how far behind I am. I don't think I've ever really fallen this far behind on my Goodreads goal before, so that's worrisome, but hopefully I can do it. I might have to lower my TBR goal for the year, or my Goodreads goal for the year, which I don't really want to do, but we'll see. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you're doing well reading mentally and otherwise, and I really hope to see you all in my next video. Bye guys.